Hello, so I am back. I've finished the top portion of the t-shirt. I added little stitch markers every day to show my progress. The first day I had like super progress, and then just a little bit while I was working during the week, and then yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I had the day off, so I had more progress. And now I have come to the point in the pattern where I'm finished with this top part. So I have a total of 396 live stitches on my needle. So on my next row, which is my right side row, I've already counted all of my stitches in between the stitch markers. So I've counted the stitches for the left front, the left sleeve, all of that. So now it says to join the yoke to work in the round on the next row as follows. So it says we're going to work row 1, which is the same row as up here. And then we're going to cast on 4 new stitches using the backward loop method at the end of the row and join to work in the round. And then there will be 408 stitches on the needle. So I'm going to do that real quick. So just like we did in the first rows when we were increasing our stitches all over the garment, when we're doing this last row before we start joining our work, we're going to increase a stitch right before you get to the raglan stitch. And so my whole time I've been doing this, I didn't do the make one left or the make one right. I literally just did knit one front and back the whole time. And this is how my raglan stitches look. And I personally think they look just as good as make one left and make one right. So if you're still kind of scared about not doing the make one left and make one right, I assure you it's going to look just as good. So I'm going to go around the rest of the row and I'm going to do the increases in the stitches where I would normally do them, and then I'll meet you back at the end of the row where we cast on new stitches and we join the round. Row 1, which I've already done. Then we're going to cast on 4 new stitches using the backward loop method at the end of the row and then join to work in the round. There will be a total of 408 stitches on the needle. Then you're going to knit to the first raglan stitch, which is what we said was the stitch marker, and the round now begins right there. So that's what we're going to do. We're at the end of that row. And now we're going to cast on 4 new stitches using the backward loop method at the end of the row, and then we're going to join, and then we knit to the first raglan stitch in between the front and the left sleeve, and then the round now begins there, and then we knit across the round. So let's go on ahead. We're going to use the backward loop cast on, which you just hold your yarn this way, swirl it around your finger, and come underneath there, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we've got those 4 stitches cast on there, and don't cast them on super tight because you're going to want to be able to get your needle up underneath them when we get to them again on the next row. So now we're going to knit to the first raglan stitch right over here, and so that is going to be where we put our new stitch marker to join in the round right there. So this is what it's going to look like here on the part where we just joined. So this right here is going to be the first part of our V-neck. And as we get over here to the stitch right before our stitch marker, where the raglan stitch is, that's where we're going to be the first, it's going to be the new start of the row. So that might be a little confusing because it's actually confusing me a little bit too, but we're going to go through it slowly and we're going to figure this out together. I wanted to let you know too that I have had to rip back so many rows in here because I was doing a lot of working on it while my husband drove me to work every morning, and the bumps and everything. So I ended up splicing a lot of yarn, and so be really careful when you're working with this yarn and these little tiny needles, because it's very easy to make mistakes. When you find those mistakes, go back and fix them, because you will be very angry at yourself if you do not, when you find that your work looks kind of crummy, as I had found that mine did. Okay, so I have my little stitch marker right here. It's just a little bumblebee. So I'm gonna put that on here to mark that this is now, let me put it the other way so that that little thing doesn't mess with the yarn. So we've got our stitch marker on, and now the row begins here. So it says then to knit across one round. So we're going to just go ahead and move that stitch marker for our raglan stitch. Did I get all that yarn there? Yeah. And the next stitch marker. And we're not going to increase on this row because it told us not to. Right now we're just knitting across the entire row. So we're going to knit up to all of the raglan stitches. We're going to pass the stitch markers over, and we're not going to increase because it told us not to. So I am going to work on getting around this row, and I will meet you back here when I am done with that. Okay, so I have come to the end of that first row where we kind of established that the new beginning of each row would be this right before the stitch marker between the raglan stitch. So now it says, work in stockinette stitch in the round while working raglan increases every other round as follows. The same raglan increases that we've been working the whole time. At the end of each of those raglan increase rows, you will have created 8 new stitches. Then you knit across a round, and it's going to say repeat from the beginning to the end a total of 1 time for me because I'm working a medium. And there's now going to be 416 stitches on the needle, and it will have been a total of 49 rows of raglan increased have now been worked. So that one row that I just did was just a knit around row, and I didn't do any increasing because it said to knit across one round. So now I'm going to do 1 row of the increases that it said. So I'm going to do another row and then do the raglan increases at the beginning, where you're supposed to make them. This is what those 4 stitches that we cast on for the V-neck are going to look like after that first row that you've knit around of them. So I'm going to knit around this entire row now and do 1 more row of these increases, and then we'll move on to the next section. Okay, so it got a little confusing for me, so let me tell you what I kind of figured out. So I took off the right knit stitch marker here, and I put my little bumblebee on to super identify for me that this is the beginning of the round. So because I'm so used to making a increase stitch over here on this side of where the bumblebee is, and then one on the other side, and so that changes when you get to this round. So I have 80 stitches currently between this side here and this side here, and so to do this round after I do this round, I'll have 82 stitches. So I was like, wait a minute. But I realized that meant to knit the raglan stitch here, then do my increase here, which would be 81, and my increase here, which will be 82, and then to just continue going like that. And remember, at the very end of my round is right here. So I'll do an increase stitch here at the end of that round as well. But I'm just starting here with that first raglan stitch. So I hope that made sense. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my increase round, and I'm going to see where that ends. See how that ends up. Okay, so across the front part of that, so this right here is the front area of the V-neck in our sweater, or in our shirt. And then this is the part that's going over our shoulder. So in this shoulder area, I now have 82 stitches, which is what I'm supposed to have. Then I'll do the raglan stitch, and then I'll have 124 stitches after I do the increases on the increase right here and the increase right here. I'll have 124 stitches across the back, and then in between this shoulder part here, I'll have 82 stitches after the increases. And then on this section right here in the V-neck, there will be the one raglan stitch. And across this whole area, across the whole V-neck here, and then the 4 stitches we cast on, and the V-neck here, there will be another 124 stitches. So across the back, there will be 124 stitches. Across the entire front of where the V-neck is, so this part of the V-neck, the stitches we cast on, and this part of the V-neck, there will be 124. Over the shoulder, over your left shoulder and right shoulder, there will be 82. Now those numbers are if you're knitting a medium. It explains the distribution of stitches with the other sizes right here. So ignore my numbers if you are using another size, okay? So I'm going to finish this, making sure that I have all the stitches that I need to have on here, and then I will get back to you for when we start doing the body. All right, so we are at the very beginning of our body, and this is what we're going to be doing for all sizes. Doesn't matter what number of stitches you have in between raglan stitches, this is the same for all body. So we are now going to divide the stitches between the body and the sleeves, while at the same time casting on at each underarm as follows. So we're going to knit 1 raglan stitch. So I'm going to move the stitch marker for the beginning of the round. Knit 1 raglan stitch. I'm going to go ahead and take this off because we don't need that for now. And now we're going to transfer all 82 of these stitches onto this length of discard yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that, and then we will continue to knit the back stitches, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, so I've got those 82 stitches on this length of yarn, and I'm gonna just make a little knot like a light knot. I don't want to make like a really heavy, really hard knot to get undone. So now it says that we are going to cast on 12 new stitches at the underarm using the backward loop method. So again, just kind of hold the yarn, flip it up under your finger. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and now these are going to be our underarm stitches. So we got our 12 stitches using the backward loop method, and now we're going to knit 1 raglan stitch. So let's move this over. Knit 1 raglan stitch. Doesn't tell us to increase or anything. So now we have these back 124 stitches to knit, and it doesn't tell us to increase. So we're just going to knit those 124 back stitches. And I will see you back again as soon as I am done knitting these back stitches. Okay, so I've made it here. It says to knit those 124 back stitches, knit the 1 raglan stitch, and move that stitch marker over, and now we're going to put those next 82 stitches on the stitch holder or on your piece of yarn that you're using. When you're doing this, make sure you're really getting underneath every stitch to make sure that you're not going to splice your yarn. Just kind of do like a scoop underneath there. So I'm going to scoop the rest of these stitches, and I will be right back. All right, so I've got those 82 stitches on my little yarn here, and now it says to hold on. Okay, cast on 12 stitches at the underarm using the backward loop method. So here we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then it says knit 1 raglan stitch. Backwards loop method, knit 1, yes. Knit 1 raglan stitch. So we're going to move that stitch marker over. Knit the 1 raglan stitch, which is going to connect these 2 areas. And then now it says knit 124 stitches for the front, and then once we're done knitting these 124 stitches, there should be 276 stitches on the needles for the body. And so the beginning of this new round is now going to be in the middle of the 12 stitches that were cast on at the left underarm. So does that confuse you? Okay, well when I get there, I'll show you what I mean, okay? So we're just going to go on knitting those 124 stitches. And that includes knitting over that area of the V-neck where we cast on extra stitches. So we're going to knit through the left side of the front of the shirt, through the V-neck area, and through the right side. And then we're going to get back here to the left shoulder, and we're going to move this little beginning of the round stitch marker. We're going to move this from where it is to in here in the middle, and that's going to be the new beginning of our round. So I'm gonna get there and then I will show you what we're doing. Okay, so I've knit to the stitch marker which denoted the beginning of the next round, and now it says the beginning of the new round is now in the middle of the 12 stitches that you cast on at the left underarm. So I'm going to remove the stitch marker. We're going to knit 6 stitches and then put on the stitch marker again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, I spliced. 6. Now we'll put in our stitch marker, and it says continue in the round and stockinette stitch until the top measures 54 centimeters, this is for a medium, or 21¼ inches, or to the desired length measured mid-back. I recommend trying your top on to determine the perfect length for you. Okay, so keep in mind that if you decide to make the top longer, then you'll need more yarn. So they say to measure from mid-back, so I'm gonna take that as meaning, like, let's start measuring, when we start measuring for how long the, don't lose that, for how long the shirt is, I am going to take these markers out because I don't need them anymore. And I'm just gonna put a marker up here, like a different colored marker up there. And that's going to show me where I want to start measuring for the 21½ inches. I don't know if I'll knit to 21½ inches because I have a rather short torso. So I guess it's important to try this thing on as you go. Yeah, try it on as you go, and of course very carefully, because you don't want to end up messing up the stitches at the underarm or anything like that. You don't want to pull too hard, so just use your best judgment when it comes to trying on. So that's going to be where I start measuring my 21½ or 21¼ inches for my back. So it says to continue in stockinette until the top measures 21¼ inches measured mid-back, and try it on to determine the perfect length for you, and finish the hem with an I-cord edge with decreases so the number of stitches is reduced, and this assures that the edge that will not flare out. So we are now at the part where it is basically just knitting. So we've done all of our increases, we've done our sleeves. We will work on the sleeves when we're done with the body, when it's, you know, to the perfect length for us. Then we'll do that bottom I-cord edge. Then we'll finish up our sleeves. We'll do the V-neck I-cord, and yeah. So happy knitting. I hope this little tutorial for how to work on this second part of this shirt I hope it helped you. And I'm gonna go on from here and keep working, and I hope you keep working too. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments box and I'll try to make sure I get back to you. But let's keep working until we get to the very bottom where our I-cord edging starts, and we'll start our tutorial back up then. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate all of your kind comments, and I will see you in the next video, which will be part 3. Bye. Just wanted to pop on here again really quick and let you know that as you're making these new rounds around your work for the body, go ahead and take off those small stitch markers that we used in between the or on the either sides of the raglan stitches. You can go ahead and take those off now. We will no longer be needing those.